Good evening, I'm Jeff Lyons. It is 9 o'clock here on Thursday, July the 23rd. Time for the 14First Alert Weather Show at 9 o'clock. You can comment in on the 14 News Facebook page, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Once we get toward the end of the program tonight, I tell you, this has been like a little break here in July. Not quite Christmas in July, but it certainly is a gift to have such cool, dry air. Really no weather worries. Again, tonight we should drop into the low 60s. The clouds are going to return tomorrow, and we'll probably have a few scattered showers, maybe even a thunderstorm or two Friday afternoon into early Saturday. And no severe weather risk showing, and it should be just spotty in coverage. We're not looking for a rain event, so to speak. The hour by hour brings the first scattered rain in tomorrow afternoon, afternoon, I guess that's what I said. And then a late Friday night through Saturday morning, we get additional showers, maybe some thunderstorms, trying to hold together there as they kick in from the west. But generally it looks fairly quiet. The heavier rain will be back here around Cape Girardeau and down into the boot heel. All that kind of moving to the southeast as well. So that should pass the tri-state. And then here comes the temperature again. 82 tomorrow, but you'll notice we get back into the mid-90s there to start next week. So it wouldn't surprise me to see a heat advisory again. We will be close to that criterion with the heat index around 100 to 105 on Monday and Tuesday. And at least for now, the smoke has been leaving us alone, at least in an impactful way. We've had a little kind of a cast in the sky last night. If you went out and looked at the moon late, it kind of looked a little orange because of the thin layer of smoke aloft. But we don't see an air quality issue coming up, at least not through the weekend, where we would get enough of that smoke or particulate down here at the surface to push the air up into the unhealthy range. 70 degrees outside right now, and that humidity at 65%, our dew point sitting at 58. We might hit 58 tonight. You know, we hit 59 this morning, and I think our dew point when we talked last night, I think it was around 55 or 56, I don't remember, but it was in the 50s, I do know that. The feels like temp's perfect out there for everybody involved. The low today, as I said, 59. And you look here at the Midwest, you can see that plume of cool air in there under the high pressure. Fort Wayne was down to 51 this morning, one of the coldest spots here, at least in the region. And our high temperatures today all behave themselves. Everybody pretty much around 80, a little warmer as you'd expect down in Nashville and Memphis. So for the month, we put another orange day there. No yellow ones yet. We haven't had a day where we only got up into the 70s, and that probably won't happen. Certainly, if it doesn't happen tomorrow, and I don't think it will, we will go on into the weekend there back into the 90s, and no rain. And while you might think we're teetering on the brink of drought, at least for the time being, we don't appear to be. A little dry over southern Illinois. Now, if we go another week or two without some rain, widespread rain, then yeah, we might get into more abnormally dry or kind of sub-drought conditions out there. Sunny, still pleasant again tomorrow, and we're watching the plains right now. A lot of action here in western Kansas, out around Dodge City down there. This would be Goodland, Hayes up there. I almost took a job in Goodland and Hayes back when I was first starting out. This was 40 years ago. And there is not much out there. Interstate 70 and a TV station and a lot of fields. I did not go there to visit. They called me on the phone and kind of described it. But I don't know why I mentioned that. Anyway, but that's why I know where Goodland and Hayes are. They're out that way. We have rain right now in Colorado and down into New Mexico and Arizona. And as I told you last night, this is part of what we call the monsoon season. And that's when we get a change in wind direction off of the Pacific Ocean, which forces moisture inland and up, and then it rains. And that's the time of the year around the Four Corners that they count on for significant rainfall. I don't know what the average rainfall is in Phoenix. It's some tiny number. It's like, between 5 and 10 inches. It might not even be that much. And and this is when they typically get it. The rest of the water there comes down the Colorado River as snowmelt when the Colorado River is flowing, which it has not been doing a lot of this year or the last several. Okay, in the Gulf, we're in pretty good shape there too. What's left of Bertha now coming on shore in Texas between Houston and Corpus Christi. It will continue to rain there inland. And the low pressure, it's now down to a tropical depression there as it continues to move east. And that's common. Once the tropical system gets on land, they don't have anything to work with, warm water and so on. So nothing usually comes of that. The storms will become a little more organized tomorrow in the plains, but notice as they encounter the dry air over the tri-state, they'll start to break up again. And that's why we're going to be kind of hard pressed to get any significant rainfall on Friday and Saturday. The atmosphere will literally eat it up, the rain, before it makes it to the surface. And even the GFS now has kind of begrudgingly come over to the dry side of things and remains mostly dry all the way through the week. Maybe an isolated shower there Tuesday, but generally dry all the way down the line. And so your rainfall numbers are going to be much lower than they were even yesterday when we talked, something on the order of half an inch of rain under any storms that get going. The European also dry next week, beginning Sunday and all the way into Thursday and Friday next week with little sign of rain coming our way. Therefore, you're going to see scant amounts of rain out there just with those isolated showers popping up. 61 tonight and up to 82 tomorrow. Perfect, 7 degrees cooler than normal. 7-day forecast, our best chance for rain late Friday and Saturday. We've got a 40% chance there, and those showers and storms should occur early in the day, meaning afternoon. 1 o'clock, we should be out of the woods with rainfall and enjoy a little warmer weather, but at least some sunshine too. Our temperature outlook still warmer than normal there for the first week of August and drier than normal too. Our pet pick tonight, this is Missy. Missy is a plump cat there too, and also has the M, as you'll notice. A lot of tiger cats have those. I mentioned the other night, someone told me once that it means that those cats are more intelligent, I guess, than just your rank and file cat. But I don't know how you would assess a cat's intelligence. Maybe we could discuss that since there's virtually no weather. All right, let me get to your questions and comments here. All right, well, here I got us on time tonight. I can't get to Facebook on my phone. There it goes. Okay. All right. Please stand by. Okay. Well, it's not going there either. Let's try it this way. And there we are. All right. All 74 of us watching. Okay, let's see. All right, good evening. All right, so we got Joyce May on there. Beautiful day today. Yes, I agree completely. Zach Seats, aren't tornadoes very uncommon in July for Evansville typically? They are. I think I mentioned that. It's been at some point here on the stream show, probably on the anniversary, July the 9th. Of the EF2 that hit in Mount Vernon, knocked down the warehouse over there. Was it EF2 or 3? It was I think it was might have been a 3. Anyway, it was a strong tornado. Earlier in the week, I think that was Monday or Tuesday, early in the week, these days all run together, I'm sorry. We had a tornado outbreak east of here in Louisville's region, right? And Grayson County, which actually is just one over from Ohio and Muhlenberg counties, a long track for July tornado. And the point was made, you never get tornadoes in July. Well, you do sometimes, but not to the extent that we had earlier in the week. And they were supercells with the wall cloud, the whole thing. So yeah, but typically July, August, September are the non-tornado months, if there is such a thing anymore. Misty Ramos Sensmeyer, I've been loving these temps during the day and night. Me too. What's not to like? Who would gripe about that? Well, somebody would gripe. Trust me. You read my emails some days. Somebody always gripes. There's always a sore head somewhere out there. That's a sign when you drive into Beaver Dam in Ohio County. When you come into town, there's a sign that says, Beaver Dam, or maybe it's Hartford. They're right next to each other. Anyway, it says, welcome to, I think it says welcome to Beaver Dam, and then population, whatever it is, 2,500 or 3,000, and then it says, and a few sore heads. I always thought that was great. Somebody got it right. Jeff Turner, thanks for the good weather. Do you have any thoughts about the proposed time change that Congress could act? Oh, now you're pushing my buttons. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. Misty, dreading the hot temps for next week. Well, based on your previous post, I can see why, yeah. You just got to get through it. John Radis, is this a heat wave or just a regular July weather? A heat wave is, what's the difference? A heat wave would be prolonged oppressive heat conditions where you'd be in the, for me, it would be mid-90s and the humidity pushing your heat index closer to 100. For, let's say, for a heat wave, I would say 3 or more days would qualify in my book. There's probably a criterion, but yeah, for a wave, it's got to be a few days anyway. Looking like a great weekend for swimming. It is indeed. Sari Sigler. Did I say that right? Sari? I bet it's Siri. Siri? My son had a friend named Siri, but it was spelled differently. Well, you correct me if I'm wrong, okay? I don't like to mispronounce names. That's the worst thing. I hate to forget names, too. That's worse. Ran into somebody at the fair last night, and I was fishing around for hints and no luck. You ever had that happen? You probably don't, but you hit a certain age and the names go. It just poof. And I run into a lot of people that know me, right, because they see me on TV. And of course, I don't see you. I feel like I know you all because you're here every night. But if I ran into, say, Maddox Riggs, other than looking at your profile picture here, I probably wouldn't know you. I mean, I would know that name. That's an interesting name. It's weird. I remember last names and I remember where people are from, because that's what I always ask. I don't know why I ask that, and I'm told that's kind of rude to ask where someone's from, but I think it's interesting. You say, well, I'm from Ashtabula. Oh, it's in Ohio. You must be on the lake. I guess it's because I've worked with maps my whole life. And I find that interesting. And people like to talk about where they're from, unless they're offended. And they, but I don't know why that is, that I can remember places, I can remember the weirdest stuff, but names are really tough. So if you run into me and I don't know your name, just tell me your name. I run into a lot of people that say, you remember me? And you can always tell when you say, no, I don't, then they, and I always say, well, help me out a little bit. And sometimes if they give me a clue, like I'm the guy from Ashtabula, oh, it's you. I'm rambling tonight, I'm sorry. We were going to talk about daylight time, weren't we? I kicked the can down the road here. Okay, so Jeff Turner wanted to know if Congress changes the time. Well, first of all, this is not a political forum, right? So I'm not going to get into, the Democrats want one thing, the Republicans want another, and the rest of us here just want to be left alone, right? But here's the thing with time. It's been tried before, and people hated it, and then we went back to whatever it was. People generally don't like change. That's an observation I think that is valid. The issue for here in Indiana, and I don't have that graphic loaded tonight, but I'll be happy to put it in tomorrow, and we can really, talk about it in more scientific terms. But if you look at the map and where the timelines are drawn, time zones are drawn, what's happened over the many years is everybody wants to be in the time zone that's to the east, because you get more daylight, right? Especially if you are close to that western edge of a time zone. If you pull it over, now you're getting the very late sunsets in the evening. Of course, you get late sunrises in the morning, but people seem to prefer having the light in the afternoon. I guess a lot of people, or most people, probably work, during the day. Not like me, where I work until 11 o'clock at night. And so they want that daylight. Daylight saving time came along a long time ago, back during World War I. And the original intent was to save on fuel oil and illumination, right? And so by taking that wasted hour of daylight in the morning and pushing it into the afternoon, you could run your factory later. All right, so that kind of made sense. Well, then World War I ended. And the daylight saving time, I can't remember if it went away, but it came back probably during World War II, and then it kind of stuck around, and people became a little more accustomed to it, but there was chaos because not everybody had to adopt it. And that's why, like in Indiana, you had half the state observed Eastern Standard Time, and the other half, where we are here in the Tri-State, observes Central Standard Time during the winter and Central Daylight Time, move the clock ahead an hour in the summer. Okay, well, if you move the clock ahead in the summer and the Eastern Time Zone is always Standard Time, then there will be a period where the time is the same, even though one's Eastern and one is Central Daylight. Very confusing, right? And so, and people don't like that either. Most people, I think, would prefer that their entire state is on the same time. Well, Indiana, because of geographically where we are, the whole thing should be in Central Time. The time zone line should go right down the Ohio-Indiana border and then slice through Kentucky. So Lexington would be on Eastern, but Louisville is Central. You get it. The only reason I think that Southwest Indiana observes Central Time is that we align with Chicago. Chicago, of course, always on Central Time and Central Daylight in the summer. And Northwest Indiana, because you have a lot of people that I guess work or go up there. And then all of Illinois is on Central Time. But Indiana's the sticky wicket, and they have batted that ball around. And I remember when I was a kid, they tried, I can't remember if they adopted, well, whatever they did, it was dark until like 8:30 in the morning. And so then the point was made, well, you can't have kids waiting out in the dark for the bus. So then okay, we're done, we're going to push it back. And it's just like that. Goes around and around. And, everybody wants it now, but then in the wintertime, when the sun's not coming up until after 8, that's a drag, and people will be unhappy. So I think if I were a politician, and I'm not and never will be, I would leave it alone. I would say we're all going to Central Time, eat your peas, that's it. Now, of course, politics doesn't work that way. You got to get other people to agree, and you got to write legislation, and so the bottom line is, see, you set me off. Now I'm just going on and on. But I just think it would be so much simpler and logical just to all be on Central Time in Indiana. Not Eastern, though, Justin Turnage, I'm sorry. Eastern Time Zone, Central Time Zone, pick a side, Indiana. Exactly. That's somebody, Sari loves this history lesson? I thought I was just ranting. I'm sorry. Well, no, I'm glad actually. Maybe you didn't know this stuff. It's kind of nerdy stuff, but it's important, in some respects to what we do here, because obviously we report sunrise and sunset, but it also can affect like when the high temperature occurs during the day. Well, if the clock is ahead an hour, then you're going to get your high at 4 instead of 2 during the summer, and winter too under certain circumstances. So yeah, it's a real pickle, and it's not that big a deal to move the clock twice a year. I don't know when all of a sudden that just became this burden on people. We've done it forever, and so has most of the country, except Arizona. You move the clock, to observe daylight time and take advantage of later sunsets in the summer, and then you don't have them in the winter, when you're not outside generally anyway. And the other argument has been made, especially in Indiana, because we're an agricultural state, that it screws up the chickens and the cows. They don't know. Well, I've never met a chicken or a cow that needed to know what time it was. I mean, they're going to lay their egg or get milked when they get milked. I mean, maybe I'm ignorant in that regard. I'm not a farmer, and the farmers probably have very valid reasons for opposing switching the clocks. But it seems kind of odd, because the animal wouldn't really know. It really has more to do with who's gathering the eggs and doing the milking. And I respect that. What are you going to do? And so, see, this is where it would be really tricky if you're, a politician and you're counting on your constituency to back your decision. Well, how do you decide? Do you just vote your conscience or what you think is best, or do you say, well, all right, 80 of them want this way and 20 want it that way, so we're going to go with the 80. You're still going to have 20 people nobody's going to be happy. And unfortunately, there's not a compromise. It's got to be, you got to do your thing or get off the pot, so to speak. Okay, I'm going to get in trouble if I keep talking. Who else has a question? Justin Turner, it doesn't matter to me. See, there you go. You just move your clock and get on with your life. And we run all these stories all the time too. The health risks of moving the clock. Like, I never heard that stuff. I'm still standing. It didn't kill us to move the clocks all those years. But I will give you one forecast, okay, with regard to the time change, and then I'm going to shut up about it. Is that if no action is taken, in other words, we just leave it the way it is, and we move the clocks, something else will come along and nobody will care, right? There'll be some other thing for people to be agitated about, and with good reason. And if we do change it, then yes, people will be mad for a while, and then something else will come up or come along, some other policy, some other thing, and people won't remember. I don't think it's really a hot button issue at the ballot box, but I could be dead wrong on that too, which again is why I'm not in politics, nor will I ever be. Okay. I'm staring at this cat. I guess I got a science corner for you here. Unfortunately, it doesn't have to do with the clock. That would have been a great tie-in tonight. I didn't know that the daylight question would come up. Well, now I can't. Well, there it goes. With this dry weather that we're getting, we may start to see more dust devils again. You're probably seeing them already. I saw a couple last week. Northern India. It was a little drier up there. Right now the fields they look great, so there's not a lot of dusty soil available. They typically become more visible during harvest, when it's dry and dusty. But anyway, a dust devil forms when we get sunshine down onto the ground, which absorbs the heat, and it causes a rising column of warm air. And so that is the basis for a localized area of low pressure. As the air rises, there's less air in here, so the air around it is pushing into where this air left. It's filling the void. And as it does that, because of the way the Earth turns and a few other factors, you get rotation in that column. The air kind of cycles in and goes up, and it takes the dust with it. And so if it really gets going, and these are kind of self-sustaining, and they're self-limiting too, as I'll show you here in a minute. So as long as you've got a fresh supply of warm air to be drawn in and go up, it can carry dust and corn shellings and all kinds of stuff up and become a pretty impressive funnel. And they do spin counterclockwise, and sometimes they can get going pretty good. And they are not hazardous in the manner of like a tornado, but you run into one, you can get some dirt in your eye and things like that. A dust devil will continue to grow from the ground to the sky to a point, and then at some stage it will begin to draw down cooler air from aloft, and that chokes off the dust devil, and it goes away. And that's why they're always kind of ghostly. If you've ever seen one, they don't last long usually, unless they're really cooking out there. There are other funnels that are kind of in the tornado family, but they don't form like a tornado would. Another one would be a landspout, which forms in a similar way, but is usually in connection with a squall line or something, where you would have a spin up from the ground up to the cloud base. Now, if we compare that to a water spout, and this is I don't know if you can see that very well here on the stream, but there's a water spout here out over Kentucky Lake. And if you look right down here, you can see that vortex and the water being drawn up. Now that is a tornado, or it's like a tornado, in that it forms in the thunderstorm or cumulus cloud ahead. There's a current of air that is drawn down, and it can pick up water. And sometimes landspouts will go on to land, then it's a tornado. But they tend to be in the EF0 range, EF0 or 1. Some of you who go down to the Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America, there's another one. You want to fight over that. But anyway, if you go down to the Gulf, sometimes you've seen those water spouts out off the coast, and occasionally they come inland and they do damage. So, but they are tornadoes. They're different from dust devils, and that's that. All right, let's see if we got anything else. Suri says, I'm so right. People are going to people. They sure are. That's a good way to put it. Justin Turnage wants Eastern time for Indiana. After all that ranting I did, I'm going to boot you off the feed. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. To each his own. Can you imagine if you could just set your clock however you wanted? Might be better than what we have now. Maddox Riggs says it thought he had it something to do with farmers having daylight earlier to work in the fields. Yes, that is true. So they would have the early daylight. If we stayed on standard time, they would certainly have the earlier daylight in the winter, and even in the summer. Like right now, the sun comes up I think at about 5, might be up to 5:40. So had we not moved the clocks, then the sun would be coming up at 4:40. So the farmers would have all the time they wanted in the morning. Noon football. All right. I think we got everybody else in here. I think we got everybody. A flannel advisory. I like that. Kenneth Phillips. We need a graphic on the screen. Have like a flannel shirt up there in the corner. That'll make people mad too. You want to talk to mad people. You put a weather, the tornado watch or whatever, and put it over like the score of a sporting event, like in a NASCAR race, where they have the standings, like the pole standing, and put that up there. Ring, phones ring. People still call on the phone and gripe, so that's why we can move it, all over. Some events, there's no place to put it except in the middle. We don't do that. All right, that is more than enough. So I will see you over on 14 News at 10. And tomorrow is a little different. Let's see. Arden's going to be off. So Byron will be through midday. I'll have you at 2:30 tomorrow afternoon, the evening shows, and then, of course, at 9 o'clock. So thanks for joining. Stay safe. Have a good night.